Atlus is one of the best companies around when it comes to designing JRPG combat systems, whether that be its SMT franchise, Metaphor ReFantazio, which I've discussed for far too long in the past, or the topic of this video, Persona. The Persona combat system is built around a core philosophy. Atlus understands that while a long, drawn-out battle can be fun once in a while, it isn't fun if you have to do it 50 times in a row. And so, it pushes the envelope for pure encounter speed. An ideal Persona fight can be, ought to be, over in one round. It accomplishes this through the all-out attack system. When you hit an enemy with its elemental or physical weakness, it is knocked down, and you get an extra turn. Knocking down every member of the enemy party allows you to trigger an all-out attack, which does massive, often lethal, full-party damage. This is the most efficient way to fight, striking enemy weaknesses consistently and quickly to trigger the grand finale. In Persona 3 and 4, however, this interacts with another system to create an unfortunate outcome. See, the protagonist can hold multiple personas and is allowed to switch between them once per turn, and through persona fusion it is easy to amass multiple elemental attacks onto individual personas and build a very capable team. However, this is not true of your other party members, who are locked to one persona with very limited customization options. They usually only have access to one element. This means that while it is easy for the protagonist to single-handedly trigger an all-out attack, it is almost always impossible for anyone else. And the problem with this is that elemental attacks cost SP. SP is the resource you spend for all non-physical moves, things like magical attacks, status moves, healing, and so on. While this is a normal thing to have in an RPG, it serves a secondary purpose in Persona as a soft limit on the number of fights you can go through on a given day. SP recovering items are hard to come by in these games, and never restore as much as you need. In Persona 3 and Persona 3 FES, you could restore the party's SP by returning to the entrance of Tartarus. Although those games have the fatigue system, a different mechanic for limiting your time in dungeons, but in Persona 3 Portable and 4 it costs money to heal, money you might not always have. So, the easiest way to restore your SP in these games is simply to call it a day and come back after a good night's sleep. And that's harsh because time is the one resource in Persona you can't get back. But because you'll be relying primarily on the protagonist to poke enemy weaknesses, the real limiting factor isn't the party's SP, it's yours. So you'll always feel like you're running out too fast. The protagonist often has access to the stronger spells before their party, and those stronger spells cost more SP. You can try to minimize this by limiting your usage of the protagonist and spreading out the load amongst the party, but this opens you up to risk. Enemies don't stay knocked down for long, and this gives your opponents more time to do damage or confound your strategy. Battles become more drawn-out affairs this way, and again this is something that Persona actively dislikes. So in a meaningful way, the game incentivizes you to pull from the protagonist's SP first, and then when they're out, you have to either burn the rest of the day or try and limp on without your strongest member, and that kinda sucks. Well, following Persona 4, P Studio had 8 years to ponder this issue, and the solution they came up with for Persona 5 was Baton Pass. Here's how it works. When you hit an enemy's weakness, you can choose to continue on with your extra turn as normal, or you can Baton Pass to another party member. This grants a bonus to their attack and recovery power and lets them take a second turn instead. And if they hit a weakness, then they can Baton Pass again, with even greater bonuses, and so on and so forth until everyone in your party has had a go. This allows you to, with good party composition, consistently knock down every enemy while also effectively spreading SP usage throughout the party, and get a nice little stat boost alongside it. You no longer have to primarily rely on the protagonist and have the other members as backup. You can fight effectively and safely as long as you know what you're doing. The introduction of Baton Pass to the Persona battle system is like the invention of the Combustion engine. The old solutions could get you where you wanted to go, but Baton Pass gets you there faster, more efficiently, and with style. And like an engine, Baton Pass allows you to travel much farther, press much deeper into dungeons than you would otherwise be able to. This means you have to make less visits, which means you have more days for the 20 other things you need to be juggling in these games. There is, however, a downside to this mechanic. Partially because of Baton Pass, Persona 5 is significantly easier than its predecessors, and its enhanced version, Royal, can be made even easier. I have seen longtime fans of this series complain about this. And I get it. I do appreciate a challenge in my games. However, I would also suggest we look back at the core theme of Persona combat, making random encounters quick and efficient. Baton Pass expertly accomplishes this, and I think that philosophy is a large part of why these games are fun. All-out attacks are incredibly satisfying to pull off, this just makes doing that a little more satisfying too. Perhaps due to this complaint, Persona 3 Reload removes the buffs and renames it to Shift, and I think this is a good compromise, keeping the important parts while removing the extra bells and whistles. I look forward to seeing how this brilliant feature continues to be refined as we look forward to Persona 6. Sometime this decade, please Atlas, I can only replay the same 3 80-hour JRPGs so many times,